Right, karibu sana. This is Morning Cafe News to Stanley Nyeringita, and I promised you matters avocado farming. But before that, let's talk about matters engineers and, taming those who was actually rogue in this particular industry. And joining me here is a gentleman who is amechacha campaign engineering na engineers vizuri sana.
Yes.
As the Vice President. Introduce yourself kindly, sir.
For the viewers, my name is Engineer Butichi, a career civil engineer in the category of consulting engineer. And I'm also a corporate member within the Institution of Engineers of Kenya. In my past 16 years, I've been in this industry, and I'm very conversant with the issues and other aspects that affect the fraternity. I'll be vying for the position of first vice president in this coming election, which is slated for next week on Thursday. That is 21st of March. That's our tradition. Normally every year, every 2 years, we hold our elections on 21st March. And that's it. Now, I'm here today to express myself to the members, wherever they are. And then we see the way forward.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
And also getting to understand how the engineering space really is in Kenya. But happy World Engineering Day to you, as much as they say, better late than never.
Than never. Thank you.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, thank you.
And for this, the theme for this year,
yes,
matters engineering solutions for sustainable world.
Yes.
What do you think about that theme for this year?
The theme was appropriate because...
and actually now basing it in Kenya, in the 21st century,
yes,
that theme.
Yeah, the theme was appropriate because at the moment, that is the current issue being conversed worldwide, issues of sustainability. And as in the engineering space, we also model our projects. Currently, we try and model our projects towards sustainability. When you talk about sustainability, is that most of the projects we design, we try and use locally available materials. That's number one. Number two, we try and incorporate issues of green energy. For example, when you're doing a building within Nairobi as a developer, it will be important for your consultant to advise you that you can harness rainwater so that those who are living in that building can be able to have an alternative for rainwater. It should also, your consultant should also advise you that it will be advisable to not solely depend on power grid from the Kenya Power, so that you're also able to install solar for such functions like water heating, lighting, so that you reduce on the bills of the cost, and at the same time also save our environment. And also in terms of design, those for the longest time we've been using British codes. And some of these British codes were not responding to our current needs. So there is a trend for us to shift from the British codes to Euro codes, which are kind of minimalistic in terms of design. Because, for example, you don't have to over-design, especially like in residential houses. There's a way you design to minimize the issue of cost on these structures. And many other infrastructure. If you go into roads, there are those programs called low volume seal. You see now, initially, in our designs, we used to design, for example, a road in the village. A road in the village would barely, in a day, maybe transmit like 10 vehicles or 20 vehicles. So you don't really have to enhance the design, that one corresponding to like urban design. So there is that program which the road sector are adopting, which is called low volume seal, such that as the traffic increases over years, then you're able to enhance the road further in terms of standards. Because a road that carries 5 vehicles in a village, you don't have to really design it to those standards, whereby you are required to enhance the standards with time as the traffic increases. In terms of also sustainable energy, if you go into water sector, in the past many years, the bills have been so high for water. And the reason is that that sector depended entirely on grid power. When you depend on grid power, it means that your bills, because we have the operator has to factor in the issue of the bills. So even the water sector also, they have moved away from using the grid power and adopting the solar power so that the power bills can be lowered. In the same sector, they have also adopted smart metering, whereby we don't have losses along the supply of water. The same also smart metering is also in Kenya Power to reduce issues of power losses. Power losses.
Right.
Yeah.
Well thought out, the whole theme of that particular engineering thing.
Yeah.
But then now, walk us
basically,
through
sustainable infrastructure means we are reducing the cost, the operational cost and the construction cost on the client. And also making it sustainable so that there is always an alternative to it. We are even incorporating things to do with disability. Yeah, in every structure, then you have to make sure that at least there are facilities for disability, for people living with a disability.
And all inclusive.
Yes.
But then now, walk us through how an apartment that is under construction somewhere in, let's say, Mathare, collapses. Walk us through the genesis of what led to that. In the building industry, normally, and let me point out that most of these structures you see failing, they are owned by private developers. And I would want to encourage private developers that the cost of having a proper consultancy to take you through your project is cheaper than you trying to do your things, your own things, and then the building collapses. Because when it collapses, then you've lost the entire capital. In our field, normally, especially when the project is of a bigger magnitude, you'll have to engage a team of consultants come together. In this consortium, we'll have an architect who will be the lead person for the team, and then we'll have a series of engineers depending on the magnitude of the project. We'll have a civil engineer in that who will also act as a structural engineer. We'll have a mechanical engineer. We'll have an electrical engineer. We'll have people to do with the environment. You'll have people to do with all this manner of things. When the client has conception, what he wants to do or what she wants to do, he'll approach a team of consultants led by the architect. The architect will come up with the conceptual design, that is the spaces, management of the spaces. And then the other engineers now will carry out their own functions. Structural engineer will be in charge of all the reinforcement, the concretes, and then the electrical engineer will be in charge of all the lighting system, and the mechanical, if there are lifts, and on any other mechanical aspect within the building, then that mechanical engineer will be in charge. As a good practice... So roughly there are more than 5 engineers?
Yes, depending on the magnitude of the project. A smaller project will not really need a lot of professionals. But
so hypothetically, it's a 6-story building, somewhere in Mathare. How many engineers are involved in that?
We'll have a structural engineer involved. That's very key. We'll have an electrical engineer because of the electrical appliances and lighting. That's very key. Depending if the project has a lift, and of course even the other sanitary items like the washrooms and all that will be carried under the mechanical engineer. If the project is much bigger, a project we're talking about like a stadium, for example, it will have things to do with the environmentalists. Even the 6-story, it must have an environmentalist, who will make sure that as we are developing the structure, it is environmentally friendly, socially and environmentally friendly.
Great. Now that we've established so about more than, let's say, 6 plus engineers involved in this hypothetical 6-story building, somewhere in Mathare. So when it collapses, who failed? Who should be blamed for that?
There is nobody to blame. It depends. That's why I was taking you through the journey. That once the client identifies his concept, he brings in those professionals. They design. The architect will design the space. The structural civil engineer will design the structural parts. Mechanical will do his part, and electrical will do his part. Now, where the gist of the matter starts is when supervision is on. Some clients would want to avoid costs during the supervision. So they'll either engage just the architect and maybe another, and the foreman, leaving out some of these engineers. And during the construction, the contractor, depending, because sometimes you have a developer and then you have a contractor, and sometimes you have two in one. You are the developer and you are the contractor yourself.
Okay.
But if you've engaged a third-party contractor, then this contractor, there are a number of things that he would want to do to follow shortcuts during construction. So if we don't have a structural engineer, because the strength of the building, whether it collapses or not, squarely lies on the structural engineer. So if this structural engineer is not facilitated to be on site throughout, have his representative on the site, then there will be very minimal interaction between the contractor and the structural engineer. So it can be due to negligence, but it is never about design, because our designs are normally perfect and to the point.
Does the client naturally know that they need all these engineers on board?
Yes, they know, but at times they would want to save on a cost. The cost they save is very minimal by not engaging engineers, vis-a-vis if the building collapses. Because a building can collapse when it's almost complete. That's like 50, 100 million. But what is the cost of a structural engineer? It's a few millions for him to be able to carry out the works properly, to supervise the works properly.
So what's the procedure of a client getting in touch with any of these engineers? Do they have to reach out to Institute of Engineers of Kenya, or it's just ile kando tu unaona mtu kando?
No. What is there is that any registered or chartered engineer has a number at EBK. Our regulator, Engineers Board of Kenya, has our details in terms of the number. For me, I have a specific number that is specific to me.
For you,
So what the client need to do is, once he incorporates a team of professionals, he need, first of all, to inquire about, to have them present their certificates, registration certificates, and then two, their practicing licenses. Because every year we have to pay subscription to be able to be licensed to practice for that year. So if somebody masquerades or tells you he's an engineer, then these are the two things that you need to ask him. One is to ask for him his registration certificate. Two, his practicing license. These you can easily go to the website of EBK, Engineers Board of Kenya, try and search from the list of engineers who are licensed to practice within our portal. Then if you find his name is not there, then that would be a masquerader. But if his name is there, then he's suitably qualified. And what I want also to insist is, not every engineer is just an engineer. I can't pretend to do a mechanical job when I'm a civil engineer. I can also not purport to do an electrical work when I'm a civil engineer. So every engineer is specific in his role within the industry. So even having a right engineer for the right job is very important for the client. The client needs to understand that if it's things to do with electrical, then
you go for an electrical.
Yes, engineer. And all the details will be given there in the EBK website, the profession you're practicing in, and whether you are a qualified engineer. These will help us get rid of the masqueraders around. And most of those buildings that have failed, when you deep digger, you find that there are some people maybe who masqueraded as engineers in that context.
How many registered engineers are there according to IEK?
For now, I haven't ascertained, but we are in excess of 2,000 in various categories. Yeah, civil, mechanical, electrical, and any other. Even agriculture, we have also engineers.
So roughly 2,000 across the country?
Above, yeah, and above.
Above?
Yes.
Because I was seeing, so about 5,000 registered engineers expected to be participating in the whole election, the voting.
No. I want to separate the two issues. There is what we call IEK. IEK is an institution, a welfare. The way you people in media have a body whereby your welfare is fronted by that institution.
Right.
And then now we have the EBK, which is a regulator. So most of the time, currently, is as per our constitution, if you are registered as a professional engineer or a consultant engineer, then you automatically qualify to be in the list of corporate member or fellow member who are eligible to vote. But again, the list goes further, because normally in IK we have subscription every year. And only those who've subscribed are the ones who will be able to to vote.
Right.
So the number might reduce depending whether everybody is in a good standing. If somebody has finished his subscription up to the end of the last year. Yes.
Right. Well put now. So there are about 2,000 plus registered engineers.
Yes.
So juxtaposition this with the number of upcoming real estates and even not only even in the country, let's say Nairobi and its metropolitan. I'm talking about Kiambu, Nairobi itself, parts of Kitengela, Athi River, all this. There might be just as the same number, even maybe more, of some of this, upcoming, apartments, and houses, and all that.
Yes.
Do you think this number of registered engineers is quite too low?
Not too low. I said in excess of 2,000. It can go up to maybe 10,000, 5,000, depending. I haven't checked the statistics, but it should be in excess. But the point is, we have a low ratio of engineers in the country compared to the workload.
Yeah.
When I say low ratio, I'm talking about registered, those who are chartered to practice. But there's a whole pool of graduate engineers, which graduate engineer means that you've graduated from the university, because normally for you to be registered, there is a process. There's a process, you practice for some time, you gain some experience.
How long do you need to practice?
A minimum of 3 years.
Okay.
A minimum of 3 years. Then if you feel you're ready, then you submit your documents, and then if EBK finds that you have enough experience, then they call you for interview and some exam for you to be able now to proceed to the next level of registration. And under that, we've been having low transition from the graduate engineers to professional engineers, that transition. Because for us, it's not guaranteed.
So before we get to this transition, help us understand. So for these 3 years, this graduate engineer ametoka pale alikuwa JKUAT, mali alikuwa akatoka. So for the 3 years, where are they practicing before they actually are registered? Where are they practiced? Are they under someone, under supervision?
Sure. Normally when you finish as a graduate, then you join a company, work under a professional engineer. Somebody is already registered. Is the one who will mentor you through the projects until you are ready to register. So you're allowed to work, but you're not allowed to take responsibility, because at that point, you are not actually a chartered engineer. So I was coming to my point, of which is one of my agenda, which I'm advocating for. There is a low transition from the graduate engineer to the registered engineers, professional engineers. The reason is that the market cannot absorb all these graduate engineers at a time. That's one. Two, so that means that they may not have enough experience by end of 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Some even stay for 10 years without getting the prerequisite experience. So in our manifesto, we are championing. There is EBK has been given a mandate to come up with a school, what is called Kenya School of Engineering. Just the way lawyers have Kenya School of Law. They have an advantage, because immediately after campus, somebody joins, you study there for a number of years, and then you become a accredited high court lawyer. The same is also doctors are advantageous, because immediately they finish, you're placed on a compulsory internship through the government institutions. So you'll gain enough experience in the next 2 years and get ahead of us. Unfortunately for engineers, we don't have such a program. It is all left to the private sector and government to engage them at their own will, and these institutions might not be able to absorb all these graduates, because there's a cost. When you engage a graduate engineer, there's a cost. So what we're proposing is that EBK need to move with speed, because they've been given that mandate to establish Kenya School of Engineering. We need to move with speed, develop a curriculum for that program, put up, because it will be a government agency, put up that school so that we have almost 100% transition from graduate to professional engineers, because immediately you finish campus, you will join the school for a number of years, whatever will be decided during formulation of the curriculum.
How many years would you recommend as someone who's vying as the first VP?
Yes, we would go with the same requirement of 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah, because you'll have to spend some time in the design, spend some time in the supervision in the field. And 3 years should be able to be enough for somebody who is up to the task to be able to grasp all the design concept and also the supervision concept. So 3 years, as prescribed in our EBK Act, could be enough. But that will be decided depending on the curriculum that will be put up by EBK. So this is one of the dear agenda that I have for the engineers in the country.
Because now maybe an engineering student is watching you.
Yes.
All right, some interesting ideas here. But then now they're wondering, because earlier you'd mentioned, so after they graduate, they get into practice for the 3 years, and then now when they feel they're ready, they are registered. So now introducing the Kenya School of Engineering.
Yes.
Do they finish the 3 years in the Kenya School of Engineering?
Yes.
And then now after, do they practice, or do they now get are they registered after they're done with the school?
Once you're done with the curriculum and you've passed the exams, just the way the Law School of Kenya does, you get your certificate now to start practicing professionally, which will earn you some decent living, because when you're a graduate engineer, it's just take it or leave it, whatever you're being given. But once you become a professional engineer, then you have some bargain power with the employer. And that will help them, because once immediately you finish the syllabus curriculum and you're exposed to a assessment test, then you'll be ready to get into the market as a professional engineer and afford yourself a decent salary or a decent living. Yes.
And now, because now we're talking about the education system, so we've talked about the transition, what you're really eyeing after, so the graduating now into the next space, into the industry really, kufeel venye kwa ground venye vitu ziko. But then now, because traditionally, in the curriculum, in the tertiary education, it's 4 years, right? Five. Oh, it's 5 years. Talk to us about your feel on the education system that you have in Kenya, provided for both in the public and also private tertiary universities.
Okay.
That is in there for the 5 years, for different now, courses in engineering.
Yes. Now, for that one, I think I'll talk about engineering. I'll not talk about any other course. For us, we have a holistic system between the universities and our regulator, that the syllabus offered, because initially universities need to run on their own with their own syllabus, and you see there is what is current in the field, of which lecturers at that point may not have known what was current in the market. So what is there is that we are doing a collaboration. There is a collaboration between EBK and universities in terms of curriculum development. For example, if a university wants to introduce any engineering course, then EBK will be involved, because these are the people who are in the market, the engineers who are in the market, and they know what today's demands are. So for us, in terms of engineering, I can say that the syllabus is holistic, because EBK, the regulator who is in the market, is involved in development of the curriculum of these universities.
How many universities, maybe, roughly, is EBK partnering with?
Any university, once you come up with an engineering course, but traditionally we've had Nairobi, JKUAT, Moi, Egerton, we have Masinde Muliro, and any other that is even what is called, there's one that was Denan Kimathi, all those. As long as you have an engineering course, then...
And chartered to offer an engineering course.
Yes, because what will happen is, if you don't involve EBK, then it will be very difficult for your graduate engineers to be registered, because then EBK will not recognize that course that they have done at university. So that is the catch, that if you proceed on your own, then as the regulators outside here, we're able to now tell you, we don't know what you taught in the university. So there is that collaboration. It's a collaborative mechanism, not one imposing on the other. But such that if any university feels that they want to offer engineering, they consult EBK, they develop curriculum, EBK gives it okay, so that there is no, in the last few years, you've seen people going to court saying that, we've not been registered by EBK. And that was one of the reasons that some of those universities were not involving the regulator in terms of curriculum development.
Leon, you'd said, traditionally, EBK partnering with some of those universities you've mentioned. I love the choice of words, because over the years, and not only even in engineering, a number of courses, you'd find a number of private universities coming up and actually getting the charter to offer some of these courses. And now the fact that you're talking about engineering, do you feel like a number of private universities coming up and also offering, engineering. There is a multitude of universities offering the same. How can that really be regulated? Do you feel like, maybe it's too many universities offering engineering, and so again, now there are too many, rather a number of engineers out here?
I wouldn't say that there are so many, because the way I told you earlier, the ratio of engineers to citizens,
the workload.
It's quite high. What is important is for any university, whether public or private, once you're ready to roll out an engineering course, then that collaborative memorandum of understanding enables you to consult EBK, so that now the curriculum, once you develop the curriculum, once the students come out, they're able to be registerable. That is the most important thing, whether it's private or public. Yes.
So how does EBK gather that this university is actually ready to roll out engineering?
Of course, they'll partner in terms of developing the curriculum. Once you express your intention as an institution that you want to offer engineering courses, then EBK will second some members, some very senior members from our fraternity to join the team of development of curriculum. Once they are certain that the curriculum meets the needs of the current market and also the needs of the students, then they'll give you an okay to proceed. So that now, when the students finish the university, they're able to come and get registered. Yes.
Does EBK now look at maybe the infrastructure in this?
They look at the curriculum, they look at the labs you have in terms of practicals, whether they are current, because some university could operate with the very archaic lab apparatus. They look at those kind of things. They look even at the people who are teaching those subjects. They must be engineers in one way or the other. Even if not registered, at least that course must have some engineers who are registered, who will be offering. Apart from you being a doctor or a professor, then also you also register as an engineer, so that now you're able to interact with the market and the students.
And because traditionally some schools might be better off, maybe even for the private schools, maybe even for the funding that they are getting, might be better off when it comes to matters the infrastructure compared to others. But then walk us through the kind of let's say advantage that this, because you've alluded to it briefly, the Kenya School of Engineering. But then, because now a student is wondering, so how does this really work? Walk us through, bit by bit, how, if they're going to, in the future, if it's actually now, if we have it rolled out, how it is going to be, being rolled out, so that they know, when I'm done with this course, do I have to apply? Where will it maybe be based? How do I actually get into this? How this curriculum might look like, even for the 3 years that you're suggesting?
Okay. What is important then is that not yet, we've not even started the establishment of the school. So that is the thing that I'm pursuing also, that will implore on government to be able to set funds for this. Recently, the president promised, the president of the Republic of Kenya promised that he'll be able to help us put up the institution. This institution will be a holistic center of excellence in terms of engineering, in terms of the office work, that is the designs, in terms of supervision, in terms of current equipments that students these students who are graduating can be able to acquaint themselves with. So it will be automatic, just the way LSK does, that once you finish university, it's automatic that you transit into Kenya School of Law. So it will be the same seamless process. And maybe at that point also we'll encourage that even if somebody goes through private practice, that person still get registered at 3 years. For me, that is my proposal, that it should not just be only LSK, that not LSK, Kenya School of Engineering, that can be able to accredit, to take these students through a process until they're registered. Also, the private sector, government itself, in terms of agencies, should also be given that kind of curriculum, so that they're able also to absorb some of the students who are leaving, and the school will also absorb some of the students who are leaving. So for me, that is my mind, that it should not be compulsory only for Kenya School of Law, but it can also be extended to private consultancies, government agencies, to be given the same curriculum, the same space for them also, so that we collaborate and work together as an industry. Yes.
And so I love the fact that we've talked about even if the whole education system, because now finally, and even after, if we're going to have the Kenya School of Engineering, have some fine labor out here, some Kenyan fine labor. But then, what's your view on the client? And you probably find both private and as well as the public, and even the government as a client, importing labor from outside countries.
Actually, that is in my manifesto during these campaigns. Because in the country, we do not have a shortage of engineers. But you'll find that some of the projects being done, and this one I would want to talk to the public sector, when they're crafting the requirements for a consultancy. That those requirements, sometimes they're very stringent, because we are a young, developing country. When you tell, when you put a qualification like a resident engineer is the one who resides on site and makes sure that everything is running properly. How many people in this country have done a project of 100 billion or 200 billion? You find those kind of requirements that are very restrictive when some of these multinational consultancy are being drafted. We would want to have a discussion around this, because even the president himself of the Republic of Kenya is looking for jobs for the Kenyans, and we cannot keep on importing labor. There are certain basic positions within the consultancy, whether it's supervision or design, that need to accommodate our local engineers. Because, you know, we started doing infrastructure when we had the Kibaki government. That's the time most of the engineers began now practicing proper. Initially, they weren't so much in the field. And you putting very high requirements, somebody must have worked for, been in the field for 25 years, then we must have done 3 projects, each one 100 billion. That is actually a clever way of excluding our engineers from participating. So we would want, walking into the future, to have these government agencies, we have a discussion on some of the positions that they need to tailor-make for our local industry. Because how would somebody be a resident engineer from, for example, China or Germany or UK, doing some project in Kolomani, Kakamega there, when we have our local engineers who can do the job?
Well, surely the government does, or rather you can actually tell us if it does, partner and also get the advice from EBK on if it is an upcoming project somewhere in, you know, whichever county. Do they get the advice from EBK and, you know, they tell us? So
what is important is,
project might look.
Yes, what is important is that most of the time those restrictive conditions are brought in by the financier of the project.
Okay. Because
most of the multi-billion projects in the country, they are funded by development partners in terms of loans and grants. What we would want our president of the Republic of Kenya is to sign good bilateral agreements with these financiers, so that at that point of policy, we say that if a project is coming in the country and it requires consultancy, these are the kind of positions that are available for foreign engineers. And these are the kind of positions available for local engineers. Because face it, some of these foreign companies, they bid for those consultancy jobs. But at the end of the day, they sublet or they employ our local engineers to do the job. So what is the point? If you've bidded for a job and won it, and then you are engaging our local engineers. Another thing that we would also want the government to actively help us is that for any consultancy coming in, then the constitution is very clear that if there is any services being offered in the country or works, there is a minimum threshold for local participation. That is also we want. Now, when our consultants are joining hands with these international consultancies, they should join on equal basis. 50 or 60% to 40%, but not to be given some minimal responsibility at the tail end, to only engage inspectors and superintendents. We want also our local consultancy to be given those responsibilities that come within the consultancy. So these are some of the things that will be pushing the government. And the president, I know he's clear that he's creating employment for Kenyans.
Is technology part of the excuse that maybe the government can use to say this is why we're importing labor?
There's no technology. In this country, you have no shortage of engineers who've worked even abroad. Most of our engineers, those who are senior engineers in terms of age, citizen, most of them have done big projects outside the country, but not big to that magnitude in which some of these donors and development partners prescribe in those documents. There's even one tender that was advertised recently, I think a month or two, where the advert was saying Chinese nationals only. You see, this is blatant exclusion of our local content. We would even go for partnership or joint ventures. But that advert was very specific that if you're bidding for this job, then you must be the 100% shareholding must be Chinese consultancy. We want any consultant who walks in from outside the country to have a local component in terms of partnership, so that we're able to develop our product here as engineers.
Right. I love the fact that you talked about some of these engineers and senior, engineers. You talk about people maybe in their 50s plus. But then now, how about the exposure? Because some of the senior engineers have had the exposure of a number of years in different countries, and seen also this is how engineering is done in different, the European, USA, even some parts of Africa, in the Asian countries. They have had that experience. But how do we give exposure to these engineers? An engineer ametoka GOtv, all those kind of universities.
Yes.
They're fresh, they've done the 3 years, and they've got the practice. But then how do you really give them the exposure? Because they'll be surrounding Kenya, wanatembea different projects in Kenya, but then most projects around Kenya might be Kenyan.
Yeah, what I can tell you is that in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, Kenya is very ahead in terms of engineering. No other country within this sub-Saharan area can come to the level of engineers in the country. And what we are saying is that exposure need to be there. Even if the multinationals come in, that's why we are saying there must be a local component, so that we're able to partner and have transfer of skills, transfer of technology and knowledge. Because if we continue this way, let me tell you, in the next 20 years, we'll not be having competent engineers in the country to carry out the services. So that partnership is very important. And these need to be resolved at the very highest level of leadership in this country. We cannot do it just as engineers. The president needs to be looked in and be told, look here, Mr. President, that this country in the next few years will not be having qualified and competent engineers. And that will be a disaster. Because then it will mean that all our infrastructure will be carried out by foreigners from outside the country. We need to have this collaborative mechanism, bilaterals to be signed in favor of our citizens, in favor of our engineers. Because sometimes these things happen and the president is not aware. Some of these agencies, they draft some bilaterals which are not conducive to our environment. Those who are responsible for drafting of those kind of bilaterals need to be aware that the Constitution is supreme. And in the Constitution, if it's supreme, the law is supreme. The Procurement Act is also supreme to any other law that comes from outside. And our Procurement Act is very clear that if there is a job that is being advertised internationally, either for services or works, then there must be a minimum threshold of local content. This is clear. This is a law. It's not a regulation. It's a law. Sure. So our law is supreme to any other law that comes in. So this will be handled at the highest level of leadership, so that the leadership is told that we as engineers need to have this transfer of services, skills, experience, and knowledge.
Naturally, you talk about the bilateral agreement. So naturally, a bilateral between two countries. So, for example, Kenya and another. For example, if it's China. So, you're saying we should really have more Kenyans, and there are enough Kenyan engineers to actually do some of these projects. But on the flip side, do we have, and is there a plan even by the ABK to actually have now export our own labor, our own engineers to actually do projects out there?
Yeah, that bilateral is there. Of course, when you're doing a bilateral, is normally either way. I think why we are getting into this problem of foreigners coming and taking out all the jobs, the institutions concerned with engineering, EBK, IEK, when these bilaterals are being signed, they are never consulted by those who are signing. You'll find maybe it's a minister who is signing the bilateral, but the details within the bilateral need to be exposed to some of these, especially because most of the bilaterals are signed around infrastructure and other programs. But majorly, most of the bilaterals in terms of donor-funded projects is in infrastructure. So we'd want to urge the government that let the IEK, let the EBK be involved during drafting of these bilaterals. Because once you've signed is a bilateral. There's nothing you can change. And maybe the details inside there say that the funding government has an upper hand. There's also bilateral on the other side, because also we can also export our engineers. The bilateral should also be equal, in equal measures, that we can also have some of our engineers working in projects in those countries, so that it's not just a one-way scenario.
But then now, apart from the whole bilateral, which the government will have to be included, as EBK, as IK, are there now partnerships with other, from other countries?
Yes, there is that partnership.
Other institutions,
yes,
so that even,
yes.
There's other trainings and all that with other countries.
Normally for our regulators and even our unions, we normally have association with the other bodies from the other countries. That's why an engineer, when he comes in, for example, if an engineer comes from UK or US, he'll have to go through the EBK first for him to be able, or her to be able to practice. So we normally have that bilateral agreements between the regulators and also the institutions, so that if I have to go and work in China, then the institutions there concerned with engineering, they'll be able to welcome into the market and license me to practice for that period, if it's 2 years or 3 years. Another thing that we are seeing also, some of these foreigners come in as short-term practicing engineers. But at the end of the day, they transition themselves into some permanent residents, and they are here permanently to even bid for our local jobs. So we want also that once we've agreed it's 2 years, 3 years, once you're done with the project, if there's no other business within the country, then EBK should not allow them another practicing license for that particular year.
All right.
Yes.
We have about 3 minutes to wrap it up. And the elections are next week, Thursday?
Thursday, 21st.
Kuna butterflies ama uko sawa?
Thank you. I think I'll wrap up with that one.
But then before now, you actually, were you now the exiting council?
No.
In your case, what do you think this council actually managed to achieve, and what it did not achieve?
There have been many false starts with this council, the outgoing council. I'm coming in as an outsider, not somebody who's been in the system. There have been many issues, agitation by engineers across the country to have our constitution amended, to be able to be a live constitution. Because, even our country, we have a live constitution that responds to the needs of the citizen. And as engineers, we've been agitating for constitution amendments, but that has not come to fruition. We've done petitions, we've done memorandums to have certain clauses. For example, within our institution of Engineers of Kenya, normally there is the executive, which is elected. And then there is, once you exit as a president, you join a group called Eminent Forum of Engineers. Now, in our constitution in terms of governance, this body, of which it composes of past chairmen and past presidents, stay there as the decision making. So what is the function of the elected leaders currently? That's something that we want to address. And we are saying that forum can exist outside the governance structure. It doesn't have to be part of the governance. We can have it outside the structure and also expand it, because we want most of our senior retired engineers and senior citizen engineers to be also in that group. We want any other managing director or CEO who has retired from his position to be in that group. So we can have it as an advisory group outside the governance, so that we let the current elected leaders to deliver on their mandate. You can assume you are elected as a president, and then the outgoing president sits in the council for the remainder of your term. I mean, there's nothing complex about Institution of Engineers of Kenya to run. Even the president of the Republic of Kenya, he takes over, transition is done within a month or two, and he runs with the country, the most complex system. So we are saying in EIK, we need to have executive that can implement. Because some of the proposals we were making in the past 2 years, you would see that these executives want to implement, but their body language shows that there is some form of pressure from somewhere. And you're not saying that all engineers in this group are tampering with our constitutional rights. It's just a few of them, 2 or 3, which are making that organ look as though it is having a fist hand on the executive. 2, for example, the graduate engineers. Their members. This is an association, it's not a regulator. We would want to have as many admission to this group as possible. Yes, they get admitted to IK. They pay subscription every year. But I can tell you, they don't vote. They don't get voted for. What kind of democracy is this? It's not about me. I left graduate level a long time ago, 15 years ago.
So basically, the engineering students don't have much say.
Yes, but in that category, my daughter could be graduating next year or the year after. My brother. How do I want them to nurture issues of democracy? We want to open this democratic space for these young engineers who are coming in. Let them be, if they are members, then let's have some minimum participation in decision making. They can participate in terms of voting. And we can decide as an institution which positions they can run for. They can run for ordinary council members and the other position.
Right.
Number 3, in the governance structure, we're also looking at issues of democracy. For many time, you know, IK has behaved as though is a small court within our ranks. That today, if I speak something here, maybe criticizing the leadership, then I might find myself in court, or I might face myself facing disciplinary measures. We want to open the democratic space within our ranks so that as the doctors are being heard across the country, engineers are also being heard. As the lawyers are being heard across the country, we're also having engineers being heard across the country. It is that vibrancy that makes an institution be listened to by government and any other partner. Right. But if we remain domiciled, as we are senior engineers and only us can be in this group, this young generation brings in a lot of vibrancy.
Right.
We want members, when they want to express their freedom of speech, let them express themselves freely without getting intimidation from a group. Not all of them, just a clique of 2-3 people who keep on masquerading over everybody else.
Right.
Yes.
In a sentence, how will the elections next week be done?
Our elections are carried out electronically. What will happen is the good standing members will get a link through their phone to be able to vote. Right. So this link is particular to you. But we also want to warn those who are running the technology not to mess up with anything, because technology is bound to abuse. We want the elections to be transparent, above board. There have been cases of, in the past elections, people trying to influence how the system should produce certain candidates. Right. So we are saying this year, that space is not there. That latitude is not there. Because if they go that way, then it's not going to be business as usual.
Thank you, Engineer. Engineer Butichi Hamisi, first vying for the first vice president.
First vice president.
Imekuwa mouth vying for the first vice president, Institute of Engineers of Kenya. Asante sana, discussing matters, the state of engineers and how to actually tame the whole rogue, quote unquote, rogue engineering.